Delicious life. It's my motto. It's an idea, a way of being, a way of living that embraces the responsible hedonist in all of us. Now, I grew up in Alabama, so I can imagine that some of y'all are thinking, did you really say the word hedonist? Well, yes, I did. And when you think of hedonism, you think debauchery and gluttony. I mean, you can imagine a night out. Start out with a bottle of champagne, maybe a nice amuse-bouche that the chef brings out, a little palate teaser, and you have this warm spinach salad with the bacon vinaigrette over it. I mean, who didn't love bacon, right? And then you have this perfectly seared filet, medium rare, and this rosemary butter just coming off the sides of it. And you end up with a hot molten chocolate cake, and maybe a nice port to go with it, and a nice digestif. Now in the South, we say, take your eating pants with you. Because you know, after a meal like that, you're gonna go up at least 2 sizes. Now this kind of indulgence and excess is partially what I'm talking about, but not completely in this way. So the Greek word for hedonism is hedone, and it means pleasure. So in really simple terms, a hedonist strives to maximize net pleasure. So think pleasure minus pain. Now, the first time that I heard the word hedonism was when I was converting from my birth religion, Hinduism, to Christianity. I was in my early 20s, and my sister had just unexpectedly died. I was trying to complete my undergraduate degree in computer science, and I was actually in the middle of arranged marriage. And I was having a really hard time trying to figure out all the roles that I felt was expected of me. And so, you know, the supportive sibling and the responsible adult, the dutiful wife and the loving daughter. And I mean, let's face it, we all want to feel good. We all want to do good. We all want to be good. And I thought all my flailing around was due to this kind of dual culture, torn between South Indian heritage and my American culture. But really, it was much more than that. It was actually about a approach to living and this stage of life as well. And I was kind of doing what society expected me to do. And at that time, in my early 20s, clearly it wasn't much of a life, and it wasn't a delicious life. I had created these kind of self-imposed boundaries, if you will, around my life. So when I grasped this concept that I could live this life that was just full of joy and pleasure and passion, instead of perfectionism and guilt and duty, I felt this great sense of freedom. And I could color outside these self-imposed lines. And so for me, I could have a hedonistic relationship with God. And so it was fully indulgent, completely full of passion, and this responsible hedonist was born. And so as a responsible hedonist, you can indulge in life in a way that enriches your own life and the lives of others. So you're going to have to become a responsible hedonist if you're going to have this kind of delicious life. Now, the first part about this is that to indulge in the pleasures of life, you've got to be present, right? So if you think about it, you need to engage in your life wholeheartedly. And children are a great example of this. Okay, they are able to, you know, when they eat, and when they play, and they do it wholeheartedly, not worrying about their past or their future. Now, obviously, as adults, we can't finger paint all day long, and we can't have a temper tantrum in the middle of the store, and we do like to kind of build on our past and try and plan for the future, but what we can do is get rid of that never-ending to-do list and learn to actually engage and be present, because it's in this present state that you figure out who you are. So, and you're gonna have to do that if you're gonna be this responsible hedonist and you want a delicious life. So it's actually, in fact, something that happens naturally when you're in this present state, right? So remember that beautiful filet that was perfectly seared with that nice rosemary butter off the top? Now, if that doesn't excite you, I'm sure we all have some kind of little happy dance we do, right? So you got to figure out inside you what makes you go ooh and ah and wow. And it's going to resonate from the deepest part of your soul. It's a passion, right? And so here, I did this exercise with a nonprofit called Girls Inc. It was a leadership summit, and there were 60 girls. And we did what was called a vision board. And it's a collage of pictures that you put together to kind of figure out what stirs you and how to co-create your world. So I asked these girls to close their eyes and take a deep breath and kind of clear their mind of everything. And then I asked them to open their eyes, and they just started ripping out all these pages from these magazines, and they weren't thinking about it, and I asked them not to think about it. And whatever made them go ooh and ah and wow. And okay, they are girls from 8th grade through 12th grade, so you can imagine some of the pictures that they picked. I mean, there might be food, Sweet 16 cars, jewelry, boys, and it looked hedonistic on the surface, right? But what was amazing is the reasons why they chose these pictures. These girls could reframe their stimuli and repurpose these pictures. So it wasn't about what the marketers wanted, it was about what they wanted. So on the far left, the celebrity with no hair, the girl that chose that, the reason she chose it because it represented courage. And she wanted to have courage. And the girl on the far right has a car, but it had nothing to do with Sweet 16 or even driving. It had to do with the freedom of getting to travel and maybe one day grow up and go west. There were other girls that had like the fashion one, second to the left. And then the clothes and the purses, it wasn't about that. It represented to that girl about being a businesswoman, and that's what she wanted to be when she grew up. Now, I also have a vision board, I admit, and I look at it daily because it helps me make connections in my everyday life towards my dreams. So then, let me see, I don't know where I am right now. Well, sometimes figuring out who you're not also helps you figure out who you are. And so in my 30s, I was working for an IT company, and I was a consultant, and it was a great job. I had a 401k, sizable savings, making a lot of money, traveling, volunteering, a lot of extracurricular activities, and it was a nice life. But that's just it. It was just life. And I'm talking about a delicious life. I mean, actually going further. And so Eleanor Roosevelt said, do one thing every day that scares you, like this TED Talk for me. And at that time, I decided to leave the daily grind and step out in faith. I knew I liked cooking and wine and food pairing and entertaining. And so I wanted to kind of embrace who I am, that aspect of who I am, and kind of acknowledge the parts that, I wasn't. And so I applied to culinary school and in Europe at Le Cordon Bleu to become this French chef. And, okay, my parents, I have to admit, weren't exactly supportive. I mean, they were scared. I mean, here I was leaving this socially acceptable, financially stable job and lifestyle. And I have to admit, I was scared, but I was excited because I knew on the other side of that fear was everything I wanted. And so I went into my boss and I was going to quit and got my letter. And then I walked out with a 3-month leave of absence, which was actually great because I'm not really a big risk taker. So then I was there and I ended up going to Central America and South America and building latrines and stoves, and I was indulging in the Spanish culture. And by the end of those 3 months, I finally had the courage to actually quit my job and go to culinary school. So I am not saying, just to be clear, to incur uncontrollable debt like buy a Ferrari and put it on your credit card, or, live in a way that you end up taking residence in rehab. I am saying just take we don't use the gifts that we're given. So I want you to just take a calculated risk. And so in culinary school, my passion for food just expanded. With every brunoise and julienne, all my knife skills. Also, I got to learn how to plate and learn about how food could heal your body and the various cuisines and the smells, the touch, the taste, the textures. And then what I also was drawn to was what happened around the kitchen table. The talking and the laughing and the sharing and the building of relationships. And what I found out about myself is I had this gift of connecting disparate things together to make a connection, in this case, ingredients, and being able to make something amazing. And I use this gift, all over in different places in my life. So, after culinary school, I started a catering company, and I hated it. But what I loved is that I knew this was not how I was going to use my gifts. And so don't be afraid to fail. Failure is a building block. And honestly, if you haven't failed at anything, I'm not sure you actually stepped out of your comfort zone. So you want to go where your talents and passions intersect. This is, the next step to this delicious life. And so it'll help you co-create your world. It'll help you be agents of your own change. Okay, so a present day example, Duck Dynasty. How many of y'all know this show? Okay, well, those are the guys with the beards for you that don't know, and it's a TV reality show. And those men love to hunt and fish. And so Phil, the dad, actually was at Louisiana Tech. He was on his way to be an NFL football player, but he didn't want to miss duck season. So he started instead to make duck calls out of cedar, and he created this company, and eventually his son followed, and his third son, Willie, actually became the CEO after he went to school, and it's this multi-million-dollar business. But really, he was living his delicious life. He went where his talents and passions intersected. And so when you figure out who you are and where your talents and passions intersect, it's also important to make sure you use your gifts in a way that you can enrich the lives of others. So when you are being generous, it's important to use judgment, and I like to call it judicious generosity. Sometimes, you can use you want to use your talents and passions in a way that doesn't negatively affect your life or the lives of others, right? And so you want to make sure that the people you're helping aren't dependent on you, and they can be their own agents of change, and they can, actually have their own delicious life. So last year, I started a pilot program. It was called Seed to Plate, and it's a holistic program, and it encompasses my own passions of kids and of food and of learning. And what I did is take academic excellence with nutritional wellness, with social well-being, and it's already interconnected. We don't do math just at 9 in the morning, right? And so we use these different skills throughout our day. So these kids were engaged in present hedonistic activities. Think, cooking, digging in the dirt, asking why, using your senses. But the outcome was observational learning, critical thinking, math, science, art, letter writing, but also nutritional wellness to help with childhood obesity like inflammation and allergies. And then as well, positive social interaction and cultural understanding to raise their self-esteem. So the teachers, they were excited because they had students that didn't show up for school actually make a conscious effort to show up for this program, and they participated. This kid's playing with Lego, but he's also engaged in the fact that he's learning patterns, which is a 3rd grade math concept. And here we built these mobile gardens, and they could learn about polygons with the gardens themselves, but they could dig in the dirt and they planted herbs. And I wanted them to plant herbs because they're nutritionally dense and they could smell and taste and touch them, but they got to also use them. And here they were learning about the Greek culture, so they were making tzatziki, which is we called Greek ranch dressing because kids like ranch, right? So we were getting rid of the ick factor. But they were also learning science, so they were learning what parts of the plants they could eat. And here they were engaged in the Indian culture, and they had sprouted curried chickpeas. So they were learning the aspect about sprouting certain seeds that were nutritional for them. At the same time, they were learning about germinating seeds, same thing, but in the science context. So it was a part of the life cycle of a plant. So don't be afraid to take disparate things and make a connection. You'll be amazed at what you can passionately create. So use your gifts and talents. I have a mantra that says, surround yourself with people whose dreams for you are at least as big as your dreams for yourself. Because these are the people who are going to help you overcome your challenges. They're going to help you figure out who you are and stay present and help you find where your passions and talents intersect. And they're also going to help you indulge hedonistically in your gifts in a way that you can use in your community and in your culture in a judicious way, right? So there's a fragrance to this life, this delicious life. And everybody's way of doing it is different. And I'm just here to tell you that it's there to be done. So just like everybody has a different way of walking, a different gait, we all have a different style, and you're going to have to find your own style. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the fragrance of your delicious life consume you. I'm Radhika Kakani. Thank you.